All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our July 17th, 2024 regular council meeting. I'd like to just acknowledge that we are meeting on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. We're going to move to adoption of minutes. Somebody like to do that? All right, are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, we will accept the minutes as presented. And we'll move into presentations, and we'll start with our Comox Treaty negotiations update, and we will pass it over to our friends on Zoom, and we'll maybe let you introduce yourself, and then I believe that you can do your presentation. That'd be Justin and Marie Louise. Are you able to hear us? Am I muted?
No, I was just turning on my camera. I'll pass it over. I'll pass it over to Justin and Marie Louise, and then to our Comox members in the room, and then I'll introduce myself last and go into the presentation.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Justin Fritz. I'm a negotiator. I work for the province, and I'll pass it to Marie Louise.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marie Louise Ermish, and I'm the federal negotiator working on the Comox Treaty. I do have a sharp stop at 5:30, so if I suddenly disappear, that's likely on purpose, but I know my colleagues will be able to respond to any questions, my provincial and Comox colleagues. And with that, I'll pass it over to Ashley. Is Ashley Wright or Melissa Kwok-Sister still in the room?
They are, but yeah, they're just sitting down. I didn't invite them up to sit with us for some strange reason, but they are with us now. So, but Ashley, we'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Marie Louise. My name is Ashley Wright. I am a proud Comox member, and I'm the treaty manager for Comox First Nation.
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Kwok-Sister, also a Comox First Nation member. And I am the communications and engagement consultant for the treaty team. Thank you.
And my name is Jessica Jameson. I'll be presenting today. I'm the negotiation analyst for BC with the Ministry of Indigenous Relations and and Reconciliation, working alongside Justin, Marie Louise, and the Comox Treaty team, including Ashley and Melissa. I'm coming to you today virtually from my home in the traditional lands of the Snuneymuxw and Sunawas peoples. And if I could please ask for the public presentation to be put online or on screen.
All right, we'll start sharing that.
Thank you. So just to the next slide, please. Great. So today I'm going to be presenting on the Comox Treaty negotiations. And if we just go in there, thank you. Looking at the modern treaties, BC timeline in BC, the Comox Treaty in particular has been in negotiations for the last 30 years. In 1992, was the establishment of the BC Treaty Commission and BC Treaty Process. In 1994, BC and Comox entered into negotiations. However, the Nisga'a Treaty came into effect in the year 2000 as one of the first modern treaties. Then in 2009, for a time span of about 7 years, a few more modern treaties under the BC TC process came to effect with 7 First Nations, including 2009 with Tsawwassen, 2011 with Manulf, which was a combination of nations coming together, and 2016 with Sliammon. Then in 2019, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act came into effect, with that formally recognized the recognition and reconciliation on the rights policy, and also eliminated the debt burden put on First Nations entering into the BC treaty process. Today, we are now looking at concluding the negotiations on 3 modern treaties, 2 of which have just recently been concluded in the news, Kitsillis and Kitsim-Kalim, and coming to conclusions with Comox coming up. And although negotiations are still ongoing with other nations and treaties, as well as complex reconciliation agreements and other types of agreements. Next slide, please. So treaty negotiations overall, in past, we would hear the terms of final agreement. Now we're looking at things more as living agreements that can evolve over time. They are agreements that enshrine the recognition and reconciliation of rights of Indigenous peoples. They bring into effect land and jurisdiction that Indigenous laws can go over. They allow for self-governance, natural resource making and harvesting, the decision-making, shared decision-making agreements with our counterparts and for the province and for the federal government, as well as revised fiscal relations. Next slide, please. For Comox in particular, I had mentioned briefly earlier that Comox has been in negotiations for 30 years, starting in 1994. That's when they started the negotiations coming together as a table. In 2012, the first AIP, or Agreement in Principle, was signed. This AIP identified the rights and obligations, including interests in land and resources, to be negotiated. A few years later, in 2019, a signed agreement was then signed between the parties to revitalize the Comox Treaty negotiations. In the fall of 2022, we did have a land and cash offer between BC and Canada. And then subsequently, the next fall in 2023, there was some internal work between the federal government, and Canada came back and had a revised federal offer. This then led to a chief negotiator's understanding. And today, very soon, we will be coming up to flagging what's called the initialing. And this signals the negotiations as being substantially complete. We will then be going into, over the next few years, ratification by each government, including vote by Comox members. And then if ratified, effective date looking around 2028. During this time, we've had ongoing consultation with neighboring nations with shared territory and overlap interests, other partners and stakeholders and interest holders within the area, as well as public engagement over this time span. Next slide, please. In terms of engagement and consultation, our treaty partners are all committed to engagement, building on 20+ years of significant previous engagement throughout the negotiation process, just noting all the various interest holders within the traditional territory. Direct engagement with the public, local governments, interest groups, tenure permit holders, and adjacent landowners over many years. Treaty partners released a What We Heard report a couple of years ago, following public open houses that were available both in public and in person in 2022, and also community events that were held within the community. I think there was some during Canada Day, as well as some other ones. There's a picture there of a couple of our partners. Two key themes that came out in that What We Heard report were high levels of support for treaty and reconciliation broadly, and then a desire to see reconciliation, of course, move and advance faster. It's hard to wrap your head around 30 years for taking something, but it's at the end, we have a beautiful agreement that works for everybody. Engagement will continue to be ongoing post-initialing, and consultation with First Nations and overlapped or shared territory interests will, of course, continue as well. Next slide, please. So this slide here highlights where the Comox's traditional territory is. The outside purple boundary, that is the Comox territory itself. Within that area will be parcels of land that will lay out the treaty settlement lands, as well as Comox lands, and then public lands within that. Within the traditional territory as well, too, Comox has rights for harvesting within that area, and other things laid out within the treaty. Next slide, please. So in terms of treaty lands, approximately 3,500 hectares will be identified as Comox treaty land, with an additional option to purchase approximately another 1,600 hectares from the province of BC. In terms of jurisdiction, the treaty would lay out that Comox would own and manage their lands, be able to make laws and zoning, and do land use planning, develop and use their lands as they see fit. There will be various types of Comox lands identified in there. Most treaty lands would be private. Some will be publicly accessible where appropriate and with Comox permission. And then we'll also have public treaty lands such as Williams Beach and Wood Mountain, which will remain accessible to everybody for temporary recreational type usage. And then there will be something new that's called tribal parks. This includes Sandy Islet that would continue to be managed as a park. In terms of existing interests that are on the Comox lands, so existing permits, license holders, tenures, those will all continue, be replaced with an equivalent type of permit license or an alternative location or be compensated. Next slide, please. So in terms of some of the lands, the yellow portion here, and I'll just highlight within this area as well too, there is not a lot of Crown land. The majority of Vancouver Island is privately held as well too. So the yellow portions that we will see here will be Comox Treaty land upon effective date. There are some portions up in the Williams Beach area. We've got some portions around the old ski hill and then within the village of Cumberland, and there is Sandy Islets, a very small portion on Denman, and one very small portion on Hornby Island. Next slide, please. In terms of self-governance for the Comox Treaty, this treaty will recognize Comox right to self-govern. Comox, of course, may create laws related to all the various types of laws that are already existing, and that is newer to the modern treaties as well too. One thing's of particular interest is also around the enforcement chapter, and that's something that's newer and unique to Comox. And I'll also highlight as well too that if Comox does not make laws related to any of the above, the existing relevant federal and provincial laws do apply. Next slide, please. In terms of harvesting rights, I had mentioned earlier, the right to hunt wildlife, fish, and harvest plants and timber for domestic use throughout the territory on Crown lands and Comox Treaty lands will exist. All, of course, are subject to provincial and federal conservation, public health, and safety laws. The right to trade and barter is laid out within the treaty as well too, and in terms of sale would be in accordance with provincial and federal laws. Something new to the Comox Treaty is around elk allocation as a percentage of total allowable harvest. Next slide, please. In terms of resource management, something also more modern and unique is around shared decision-making, a process for developing shared decision-making agreements on with regards to parks, wildlife, fish, water, and the Comox estuary. Specific considerations for other First Nations, including consultation obligations, would occur during these processes and any of these agreements. Other land and resource terms include consultation obligations and harvesting rights within parks and involvement in the environmental assessment process. Resource management for Comox Treaty lands. Comox will have the lawmaking ability in terms of environmental assessments, environmental management, water use, and licensing. There will also be a water scarcity management agreement that's in place, surface water and groundwater reservations, as well as ownership of forestry tenures. Next slide, please. So in terms of timelines, I had signaled in the beginning, we are rapidly approaching initialing coming up in the very near future. In terms of ratification, the Comox vote is aimed to be in 2025, with BC and Canada legislation happening through 2026 and 2027, bringing the ownership and ratification all together in approximately 2028. Through this process, consultation will continue with neighboring and overlap First Nations, as well as continued public engagement, interest holders throughout the territory, and any interest holders within the territory. And that brings us to our end of our presentation. I will note that online, the What You Heard report is on the website here. You can sign up there for specific treaty updates. Once the treaty is initialed, you will be able to view the treaty online as well too. And of course, we do have a dedicated inbox that's monitored that you can always send your questions as well too. End of presentation.
All right. Thanks so much, Jessica, for the presentation. Really appreciate it. And I know here at the city, we're always looking for opportunities to work with Comox First Nation to support them with their with the work that they're doing. And so maybe with that, it looks like we have some questions, and I will start with Councillor Hillian.
Thanks very much, Mayor, and thanks to the treaty team for the presentation. Just for clarity, I've been privileged to represent the regional district at the treaty table for the past 4 to 5 years. So I've seen the incredible amount of work that has gone on during that period. And of course, it's been acknowledged that it's been 30 years and more that this process has been underway. I think that when people saw the list of the areas of law and governance that are involved, if you think about every one of those and the number of people at both the federal and provincial level that would need to be engaged, and of course, when you're dealing with senior bureaucracies, you're never talking to the person who makes the final decision. So everybody you talk to has to go back and talk to somebody else who has to talk to somebody else. And you get this ongoing loop, which of course is incredibly frustrating. And so I just really want to acknowledge the incredible work of all the people at the table, particularly the Comox people who have been both persistent, who have been tenacious. There have been a lot of really difficult conversations, and in that process, they've advanced the treaty-making process for all the First Nations across the country. This will be a landmark agreement, and I think it's something that is cause for celebration for us as a community. It's going to have tremendous benefit for the Comox people, but it will also have tremendous benefit for the other residents in the Comox Valley. It will provide certainty, it will provide economic opportunity, and it will reinforce the tremendous cultural strength that is growing within the Comox people during recent years. And I want to acknowledge Ashley Wright and Melissa Quack-Sister who are here today from Comox, and I think it'd be appropriate for us to give them an opportunity to speak about the significance of this process for their people, and the fact that there's an initialing ceremony on Monday that will be the culmination of a tremendous amount of work. And of course, it's not finished yet. It's going to take a few years to come into force. But I'd just really appreciate if we could hear something from them as part of this presentation today, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Hillian. Absolutely. And I don't know if you, so we'll go to those that are at the table. Well, we're seating it. So you guys are up now. Oh, now we got a standoff of, yeah, exactly. A Canadian standoff. Thanks, Melissa. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. And appreciate that, Doug. It's been such a pleasure also to have you at the table and represent, the interests of all of Comox Valley. And we appreciate your strong words at the table, and you've been a really great advocate for us. It is a really, really exciting time for Comox, and, big changes could be coming down for us. And, it can be scary for our members as well. It's we've had life under the Indian Act for many, many years, and that has not done our people a good service. And, this treaty is an opportunity for us to govern our way, determine who our members are, and really take our place. And, I want to recognize there's been many, many, many people that we've lost along the way who have fought for this. So as we hit these milestones, it is really, really special for Comox. And I wish that we could have had some of the people with us who fought so hard for us there with us. But it really is, you know, the treaty is enacting the vision that our ancestors envisioned for us. So I'll pass it over to Melissa.
Thank you, Ashley. Melissa Kwok-Sister, as mentioned, for me personally, I have been involved in treaty for over half my life. It's literally been my life's work. I know I don't look like I'm old enough to have that. Thank you. But it is. It's literally, I've been doing this since I was a teenager. I've been learning about it since I was 12 years old. This has been a generational process that when my grandfather, Ernie Hardy, was chief, you know, the way he grew up watching everything be taken, watching everybody prosper from our land, from our resources, from everything, while we just had less and less and less. To him, this was an opportunity to bring us back into the playing field. Nobody was asking anybody else to go anywhere. We just want to catch up. And with the treaty package we've been able to put together, I'm not sure how much folks know about the Comox First Nation, but we're approximately 348-ish members total, from like babies to our oldest elders. There is no way we can do all this by ourselves. This is an ongoing message I share with the public all the time. Of course, this is for us. This is for reconciliation, but this is for everybody. This is for everybody in this valley, everybody in our territory. Everybody's going to find a way to benefit from this. There will be a ripple effect where there will be housing, there will be jobs, there will be opportunities for growth, for culture, for reconciliation, and for connections, to learn from each other, to look at development that's unique and isn't just a cookie cutter of another city. Something that really takes into account our values as First Nations people, to protect our environments, to protect our resources, to protect. We don't look 20, 25 years out, we look 250 years out. If our decisions today aren't good enough for 250 years out, then we aren't going to make them in that way. We have a lot of learning to do, and we often work with our friends and partners in the local governments to help us learn, because not only are we going to have the authorities of a local government, but we actually become a third order of government. We have equality amongst BC and Canada as well on our treaty settlement lands. And it is an exciting time for us, but it's also scary. As was said, there's a lot of fear out there of the unknown. Our people are scared too. As Ashley said, all of us were born under the Indian Act. Nobody knows anything but the Indian Act. We don't know how to be what we're going to be, but we're going to learn, and we're going to do it the best we can. And we hope that when we do start building out and we start building community outside of the reserve, that people come and join us. People come live with us. We want to build a community with everybody and share cultures and share everything. And we're really excited for what the future can look like. So I want to say Imat for everybody who's been here today. Thank you so much. I honor you for being here. And anybody has any questions, don't be afraid to call the treaty office. Call the band office, say, I want to talk to Melissa or Ashley. Totally fine. Ask for us by name. They know who we are. There's only 350 of us. They know who we are. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley and Melissa, for your words. And when we look at, when I saw the picture of Mike Harcourt on that first slide from 1992, I was a teenager working with him at that time, and that's a long time ago. But again, as Councillor Hillian said, I mean, very tenacious, and again, your words today just raised my hands, and thank you for keeping up the good fight. It's much appreciated. Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation today, and thank you, Melissa and Ashley, and I guess congratulations, but thank you for your perseverance and your persistence. Heard it said before, but it strikes me every time when you talk about it as a generational project, 30 years, and hearing about it from your grandfather. Shouldn't have taken this long, and I know it's almost done, but it's not even done yet. But just thank you for your patience in this slow process. And I know the city will do whatever it can to support the treaty process and bring it forward in the community. But I think it's probably something all of us can do when we're out at barbecues or in the grocery store and just talking to people. And you know, you've mentioned the economic benefits that come, but I think there are intangible benefits on both sides. There's for the non-Indigenous community, there's pride and respect in having done the right thing, not soon enough, nearly, that we can, it's a step forward for everyone in this community, and we should all be able to take pride in it and express that pride when we're talking to other people. It's about more than opportunities. It's about living together in respect after a long, long time. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Cole Hamilton. And it looks like Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I do just want to acknowledge Mary Louise and Justin and Jessica from the province and the federal government. And not here today is Sarah Kavanaugh, who's had a huge role as the chief provincial negotiator. It's hard to estimate the amount of work that these people have all done together to make this process come to the stage that it's at today. And I just wanted to tip my hat and raise my hands to all of them. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Councillor Hillian. Really appreciate that. And again, all your work that you've done on this through this process as well. So so with that, I think we're done with the presentation and looking forward to the signing or initialing ceremony that's going to be coming up. And with that, we'll say goodbye to our friends on Zoom, and Ashley and Melissa, if you want, you can stay for the rest of the meeting, but don't feel obliged. It is a very nice evening, so I wouldn't blame you if you got out. All right. Have a great evening. All right. So our next delegation is going to be from the Braidwood neighbors, and I have Judy Goddard. If you'd like to approach the I've lost the word, podium. Thank you, sir. And if you just push the little mic button right at the bottom of the base of the microphone in front of you, Mr. Lagenmeyer will help you. There we go. All right. There you go. All right.
Okay.
And it's over to you, Judy, and you have 10 minutes for your
Can we
presentation.
start now? Okay.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon. My name is Judy Goddard, and I represent the 925 Braidwood neighbors. We are here today to discuss 925 Braidwood Road development. We can talk endlessly about Bill 44 and Bill 45 and other bills that ties the hands of municipalities and the voices of communities. We have talked endlessly about Bill 44, Bill 45, giving no voice to the public for hearings or rezonings pushed onto cities. We all have talked endlessly about the issues at shelters in BC communities, which has created a window of negative perception, conspiracy beliefs that no one wants. Omissions of facts have created fear. Omissions of speak, omissions of talk have created fear and confusion. The same fear that has been reported by staff to work safe. But what we haven't talked about endlessly is how this new 925 Braidwood Center and our neighborhood can be partners. A government-funded website, the Learning Hub, wrote, and I quote, "Resources showcase how community connections are vital for the mental health and resilience of individuals experiencing homelessness. Community connections, aren't we that community connection? If not, then will the nonprofit and BC Housing find that elusive connection? Or is it just speak and not talk? Let us be that connection in this new community, a trial pilot program of community connections. We need to be partners in a good neighbor agreement. Partners and community connections are all about sharing fears and joys with the new residents and vice versa. Talking to one another with each other's interests and stories. That is a community connection. We don't want to be fearful during the day when we walk. We want to know our new neighbors and say hello when we go out for a walk at night with our dog or our child. Let's get rid of the fears and anxieties, sharing and being a partner in this build instead of gossip. Fear is created when we can't voice our views of inappropriate behavior. Fear is created when speak is pushed upon the neighborhood instead of talk. Fear is created when we don't know the name of someone we pass on the street who is disorderly, drunk, or high on drugs. But if we were a partner, then we would know the name of that person and they would know ours. Fear is when we don't know who to phone other than the police about inappropriate actions on our street. Action and effective policy. That's a great phrase. It's meaningless, though, unless we are part of the process. Let our neighborhood community be the welcome wagon in action and effective policy to the new residents. Shifting the narrative by fostering understanding and empathy for everyone, which can only be brought about by including the whole neighborhood and communities. It is not us against them or them against us. Remember that quote, how community connections are vital for the mental health and resilience of individuals experiencing homelessness? But in order to do that, we call on you as a council with so many resources to work with us to bring forth a motion to explore a bylaw for a good neighborhood agreement. An agreement with the 925 Braidwood Neighbors, the nonprofit, Courtney Council, and BC Housing. An agreement where we, the community, our neighborhood has communications in the form of monthly meetings with the staff at the center and to discuss issues as they arise or even to give praise. We cannot just hope that there won't be any problems, as in past patterns and shelters have shown otherwise. We know there will be growing pains. So let us assist by having a face-to-face meeting with staff and residents on a monthly basis. Get to know the new residents. An agreement to ensure that a contact phone number of the nonprofit is available 24/7 to address issues as they arise. This agreement is no different than what each one of us have now where we live. An unspoken agreement of how to cut our grass, not disturbing the neighbors. We stand here today to be a partner. It's time to change our views and to include the whole neighborhood. A good neighborhood agreement with monthly meetings discussing issues that arise instead of letting problems fester, creating fear, confusion, and anger. And perhaps as a council with a good neighbor agreement with okay, I'll have to repeat that again. Perhaps as a council, you'll be an inspiration to other cities in fostering a positive relationship between the shelter, the nonprofit, BC Housing, and other communities, ensuring a peaceful existence. But let's not talk endlessly about this. We have done so many things. So I present to you our good neighborhood agreement, a draft for you to look over. And we have contacts in Penticton if you need help. And we look forward to your thoughts. And when you phone us for a face-to-face meeting. And thanks for listening, and thanks for your service as an official representative, every one of you.
Excellent. Thanks, Judy. Really appreciate your presentation. Not sure if any of the counselors have any questions or anything like that, but really appreciate your respectfulness, and you were well under your time, although I see somebody approaching the podium. So there is about 2 to 3 minutes left.
Judy was good on her time.
Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
My name is Scott Larson, Larsen. I'm the founder of 925 Braidwood Road back in April. We are an organization from the neighborhood, which includes East Courtney, of 372 members and counting. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Our dilemma has been we've had to change our tactics since finding out when BC Housing purchased the property, because no one, including the city and BC Housing, answered our questions. We are sorely disappointed. Tomorrow night, we will attend BC Housing's 2 meetings. First, a 45-minute discussion for our neighborhood, followed by a 2-hour open house for the whole community. We find it interesting that BC Housing wants to give the whole community 2 hours, but the very neighborhood that's impacting these improvements, only 45 minutes. I am open to any questions you may have.
I don't see any questions coming forward. Usually with delegations, we're receiving information. And as I let the gallery know prior to the meeting, I have met with several groups of people, and I'm still open to and have continued to respond to phone calls, emails, et cetera, but happy to meet in person, and we'll likely see many of you tomorrow evening. So I'll be attending as well. I do see we've got a couple of I think I have all my mics on now. Okay, we will start with Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks both to Judy and Scott and all the residents of the neighborhood. I think that it's significant that if nothing else, what you're demonstrating here today is that this actually is a neighborhood, a viable neighborhood where people know each other and work together. And I think that's a real positive. I'm really favorably impressed with the what's been expressed about the willingness to engage and the importance of. I do think that we're in a pretty much a no-win situation when it comes to the crushing problem of homelessness and the fact that try as we might, we haven't been able to get a handle of it in this community and in so many other communities. And it's difficult for us to turn away from the opportunity that we have right now to potentially get a purpose-built shelter and an additional supportive housing complex. But I think what's crucial in this process is how the site is going to be designed. And I'm wondering, Scott, if in your engagement with BC Housing, you've been given any indication that there's an opportunity to have input into issues around site design, things like fencing, things like where access to the property might take place and that type of thing.
Well, it's on paper, but no, we have not been given any reassurance of our input into the design. The design came forward to us without our input.
So you've actually seen a design scheme?
Yes, we have.
Mm-hmm. So, well, Well, I would hope that the open house process that's about to take place is an opportunity for that sort of dialogue to happen. I've been to a BC Housing open house once before when they moved people from the travel lodge where they'd been housed during the pandemic to the facility that they purchased on Cliff Avenue.
Was that the facility that the mayor opposed last year?
Actually, our council opposed it because we felt that it was, one set of temporary accommodation being replaced by another. But I think we've all been pleasantly surprised by how well it's actually worked and by how little concern has been expressed by the neighborhood in which that facility now exists. Of course, it's a supportive housing complex. It's not a shelter. And I realize that that's the issue that you're primarily concerned about. So anyway, I do hope that the open house process is useful. I think we have a public process that is going to be taking place here. So this discussion is going to be ongoing for some time. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Hillian. And I didn't say it in my previous remarks, but one of the things that Judy talked about was those community groups so that you come together. And that is something that we do have at the junction. I've sit on that. Councillors have sat on that. So those things already exist with the new lodge that Councillor Hillian was just chatting about. Although they have those same meetings, but because there's been no real impact, we've been told that we don't need to really.
Is that the same facility that the John Howard Society is walking away from in August with this contract?
The one on Cliff Avenue is not, no.
No, I'm talking about the junction.
I believe that, yeah,
what
BC
you're
Housing has
referring
another organization that's
Okay.
going to be taking that over. But with that being said, I'll pass it over to Councillor Jolicoeur.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to everyone for being here. I think I really heard clearly a desire to be involved from the beginning, and I think that we've heard from community throughout this process that involvement from the beginning should have happened earlier. And so I think in conversations with BC Housing, that's something that I know that I'll be bringing up with them is around when the announcement came forward, why it has taken this long. So I do want to just acknowledge that frustration that an announcement was made in the community and that processes weren't in place to involve your voices. And really happy to see that you've self-organized and you've made very clear some of the examples in which you can be utilized as a collaborative force for good for a potential project if it is approved and it does move forward. And I will say in my other role outside of council, this is a little bit of the work that I do in other communities. And I think that there's some real beautiful examples in the province of communities wrapping around support, being involved. And as the mayor and Councillor Hillian shared, there are other community committees where community are involved in both the support for ideas and solutions, but also in the identification of issues. And so I do want to just raise my hands up to each of you for being involved and for being part of this democratic process, but also for asking for our processes and BC Housing processes to be better. And I look forward to being able to support that. And I really appreciate some of the ideas that you've brought forward and looking forward to supporting those in our conversations with BC Housing. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Jolicoeur. And yeah, I mean, and I think our community has learned as well as BC Housing, if we go back to when the junction started versus the lodge and what we're looking at right now. And again, as you mentioned, it wasn't always hand in hand with the province. We've definitely stood up and said where our concerns are. And as I've mentioned, I think actually when we met, I said the same thing. We've seen them actually come to the table and learn and improve their processes. So if we look at the junction, there wasn't a meeting like there will be tomorrow night. There wasn't that type of sort of engagement. So we do see them actually working towards having that better relationship with their community. So, and again, as our job is to really help manage our communities. But with that, I know we've got some more lights, so I'll pass it over to Councillor Frisch.
Sure, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Scott, and thanks, Judy, and the whole neighborhood. Something that I have in common with you is that I actually live a few hundred meters from a supportive housing project and a shelter, and so I can understand how you're feeling and what your concerns are. And I just want to commend you all on the message of hope and coming together. And I think through this process and the fairly large investment by the province, I think we will see some positive outcomes, and looking forward to you guys learning more about it and hopefully helping shape how the community develops with this new investment. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Frisch and Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Thanks very much, Mayor, and thank you for being here. And like Councillor Frisch, I also live a few hundred meters from a supportive housing project, and I just wanted to commend Scott, Judy, and everyone here for coming to us with proposals for solutions. And I have to say, like, I'm genuinely happily surprised. I really, really do appreciate that. And the research that you've done, the fact that I saw you passing on to our city manager an example of the kind of agreement you'd like to see in place. And it's, it is the case that good neighbor agreements and good neighbor councils are in place around the community where there's supportive housing. So there's a clear model for that. And as the mayor said, the fact that we were not satisfied with the way BC Housing handled the process for the junction, the sort of the process before it was built. And I think they heard that and they've improved their process, not necessarily enough. There's obviously more room for improvement. And I would agree it is a little unusual to spend a mere 45 minutes with you and then 2 hours with people who may not live within a mile of the place, but and that it's taken a while for them to actually put together a process where they can listen to you. But I'll be there tomorrow evening. I'm sure I'll see you folks there tomorrow evening. We have feedback for BC Housing, as I'm sure you do. It's anyway, I find myself repeating myself, but I just want to thank you for coming here with solutions and with ways to work together. It's that's a generous-hearted approach, and I appreciate your generosity at this difficult time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Councillor Cole Hamilton. Appreciate those words. And so, as I said, not just you being a community, but hopefully you feel like you're being supported by your council who will also be there. Those of us that can attend, but even those who can't, when we're having these discussions with BC Housing, we will continue to make those demands to make sure that this is as positive and win-win of a situation as it can be. And if something happens, which I think goes to Judy's points of having those regular meetings like we do with the junction and other housing projects, that those can be dealt with expeditiously and as a community. So really, really appreciate, as has been said before, just how everybody has been tonight. And again, just to let you know, because tomorrow's going to happen, but if you've got more questions or you want to chat with myself, feel free to reach out. Okay.
Thank you again.
Our pleasure. All right. With that, we will move on to our next thing. I'll maybe give just a moment if for those that don't want to stay for the more exciting part of our evening. Thank you, Judy. And thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. One, two, three. Mel's online. I just can't see her. Right.
I'm here and I can see the room.
Excellent. Yeah, we were just confirming we got quorum. I just can't see you. So that being said, we're just going to move on to item 7.11, non-enforcement of sanitary sewer use extension connection bylaw 1327. I'm going to pass it over to our city manager, Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council. This report is identified as being for me. It's a relatively simple report, but there are some important components. Mr. Shaw, who was the primary author, has a couple of items that he'd want to pass on for council's information prior to considering this matter.
Mr. Shaw.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, the purpose of this report is to seek council's approval for the temporary non-enforcement of the sanitary use bylaw extension and connection bylaw number 1327, specifically speaking to section 2.3.2 to allow the Comox Valley Regional District to discharge water produced during the excavation of the wet well for the new sanitary lift station on Comox Road into the city's sanitary collection system. A bit of a complex one, report, really in principle, kind of unusual. The bylaw itself is not written in such a way that would offer staff the ability to provide that variance. And so that's why we're here today to present the information to council. It's a collaborative process between the city and the CBRD with respect to the provisions of their construction as it evolves and the needs arise. I'll offer first and foremost my understanding of the CBRD's provided environmental management plan is to trap that water, filter, and treat that water to release to environment prior to the potential, if necessary, and that's really where we are, the provision of necessary to discharge water to the sanitary if required to through the process of construction. So what we've asked of the CBRD is to help us through that process by providing information through a professional reliance model. That professional reliance model takes different approaches across the natural resource sector, but in general terms, it is a regulatory model in which governments set a natural resource management objective or result to be achieved. And professionals are hired by the proponents, in this case, the CBRD, to decide how those objectives or results will be met. The city, thus as part of the resolution, is requiring that a registered professional review the water quality analysis to quantify that the water does in fact meet regulatory standards and that are outlined not only in our bylaw, but within the provincial regulations for release, and ultimately to the receiving body, which in this case actually is the CBRD and the downstream wastewater treatment plant. The city's sanitary use bylaw is very specific in its restrictions, and as such, as I articulated, staff don't have the ability to offer that variance, and so that's why we're here today. As a result of this, staff are seeking council's direction to temporarily not enforce the bylaw once the CBRD has provided substantive evidence that the water of the request for discharge meets the above noted requirements and will not negatively impact the system nor the environment. Thank you. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Shaw. And I see we've got a question from Councillor Frisch.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Shaw. Quick question. That seems like the only hiccup here is not knowing what might be in the water. And can you just give us an idea of, you know, something that might crop up that would cause concern downstream at the treatment plant or maybe in our pipe?
That's a great question. Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Frisch. I don't anticipate having a negative result in terms of water quality. It would be of best if we were to come to council with that analysis completed to date. Unfortunately, they haven't started the drilling for groundwater removal in anticipation of that, but they do have a finite window of construction where this can be effectively accomplished before the tides and the fall season were to arrive. So they're actively working towards obtaining that information, and we'll provide it in due course to the cities that we can respond appropriately. With respect to groundwater in the area, I don't anticipate there be anything that would be negative, but the reliance model will just ensure that all of the regulatory checkboxes have been met.
Thanks for that.
And Mr. Garbutt had a comment as well.
Thank you. Through the mayor, just to add Mr. Shaw's commentary, the staff report outlines that we're accommodating and providing for the precautionary principle, which is an underlying fundamental fact that we have utilized from our construction environmental management. This is the same information that we would request of any and all people who want to discharge into the system, of which we have a responsibility for. So I would echo Mr. Shaw. I don't really want to be in a situation where we had delegated discretion, but in this case, we're comfortable with the information provided. We also want to note that like anybody, anyone can make application for discharge, and we want to make sure that we follow the regulations to the letter of the law. And this is the process that we have to come forward, and we're trying to accommodate a relatively tight timeline. So I just offer that for council's information. And we would take the same approach with anyone who makes that same request.
Thank you very much for that. And Councillor Frisch?
Thanks. It sounds like we're just being fair with the RD like we would anyone else, and that makes sense. And this seems easily supportable. Would you like me to move option 1, William?
Yeah, you can move it, absolutely.
Okay, thanks. I'll move option 1.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Thanks for that. I had one question, which is the only reason why, but I can ask it before or after it's motioned, and I got a mic here, so it's all good. Yeah, it's just, and I'm assuming this, but if anything were to happen, there would be a report back to council, I would assume. And, you know, in my 10 years here, I don't recall this happening maybe at all, or at least not frequently. So would a report come back after the fact, or is it pretty much, you know, unless there's something challenging that happens? Mr. Garvey.
Oh, thank you through the mayor. Appreciate the question. We would report back to council if there was a discharge that required that per the applicable legislation. We don't anticipate that to be a problem, but we have, Mr. Shaw happens to be the operator of our sewer system and the licensee responsibility. So he has an obligation per his designation, and then we would notify council if there was an issue.
I really appreciate that. Councillor Ulicker.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks to the city manager. That, I guess I've got a process question and then a question on the report, which is, so if there were to be an issue, and I appreciate very clearly identified multiple times in the report that staff cannot, you know, fully recommend that there won't be an issue. So really clear on that we're in a question mark phase. But the process for that would be at a city council meeting, or it would be a briefing note in between council. I just get curious because it does say that if there is an issue, that an urgent response will have to occur. And so what is the process for that communication to come back to council?
Thank you. Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Jolicoeur. It's a great question. I think first and foremost, I just want to ensure that we're using the professional reliance model so that the information we collect has been validated by that individual. If by chance there is contaminants within the water that are untreatable within their systems and have to enter into the wastewater system, then the question becomes from the CBRD as to whether or not their treatment facility can accommodate those processes in order to meet the regulatory requirement for release as well. So it's kind of a two-part system to make sure that all parties are on the same page. In terms of that, in the front end of it is really what I'm trying to articulate is there's an operational decision that has been made, that will be made in terms of the treatability of the water relative to the requirements, and that'll be a dialogue between staff at both levels between the CBRD and city. And if at that point in that juncture that those regulatory requirements cannot be met, at that point there would be a recommendation to come back to reject that request.
At a council meeting, correct. Okay, thanks. I have another question, Mayor. If no one else has their light on. It doesn't identify in the staff report. It identifies public harm, citizens, the environment, but we're not identifying location. It's a closed loop system or not? And I'm wondering if that's on, you know, is that intentional that we're leaving out the potential locations of where potential harms can happen? And the reason I'm asking is that what is our responsibility for notification to the public and or to bodies that are engaged in conservation of the environment, et cetera?
Thank you through the mayor to Councillor Jolicoeur. The project is under the CBRD's envelope. They do have an environmental management plan that has been approved by the appropriate bodies in terms of the project itself. The project itself is a small envelope of land that is adjacent to the existing pump station on Comox Road, and that is the subject area where the water will be collected. In terms of discharge, the only impact that the city has in terms of relevance to that and requirement is into the sanitary system itself. So all other provisions and parameters are under their emergency or their environmental management plan and their release obligations through the approvals of that plan. So we're limited to the sanitary system itself and then the receiving body of the sanitary system, which would be the treatment facility, ultimately under the jurisdiction of the CBRD as well. So it's a bit of a pass the baton to us in the short term to allow the conveyance of waters if required, and then back to them from a compliance and regulatory perspective.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And I don't see any further questions. And so we don't have a motion on the floors. Oh, we do. Sorry. So that being said, because I did ask my question after that was made, it's all coming back to me now. We'll call the question. All those in favor? And motion passes. All right, and we'll move on to Development Services 7.2.1, Development Variance Permit 2207 for 883 Island Highway North. And I'll pass it over to Ms. Wade.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a development variance permit to vary the fascia area and to accommodate signs to bring this project into compliance. This has had a series of compliance issues, and this is the final one to complete the progress over the past few years. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that. And we have a question from Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the report. That was comprehensive. I'm just grappling with understanding what some of the maybe downsides are to accepting this. It sounds like this sign has been this size forever and we're just trying to bring it into compliance, like you said. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to Councillor Fish, there's a series of compliance issues that came into being, and then there was a request for a variance to vary the fascia area. And before we could come to this point, we had to get it into compliance. And now this is a variance to meet the various proposed signs. And what we've done in the condition is said that that area can only be on the south-facing part of the building. So we have a very clear path forward.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. And I guess I'm just thinking, I don't have a problem with this. I drive by there all the time. Seems like no big deal. But then someone in town who has a business might be like, I'd like a 40% increase as well. So do you have any comment on how we might deal with that possibility?
Through the mayor to Councillor Fish, I think that it's a site by site, specific by specific. This has had a lot of history to it. And the actual percentage in the sign bylaw is up to 20%, and this is only going to be just over 3%.
Oh, I see.
So proportionally, it's good. It has two areas, one a percentage, and the other is the square meters. And there's a little disconnect between the square meters and the percentage. So staff feels pretty comfortable with this.
Right. Okay. For some reason, I thought we were going from 9 square meters to something almost twice the size, 16 or anyways.
Through the mayor to Councillor Fish, yes, we are. But that what we're doing is the variances for the 9 meters to the 17. But then you have to look at that in relation to the 20% that is allowed in the bylaw. So there's 2 constraints to be considered, and we don't have to vary the 20% because it's only 3%.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Excellent. And I do see Councillor Gilles.
Yeah, thank you. That actually made me think of a few other things, but yeah, just focusing on clarification questions. Because you spoke about this being something that would bring the existing signs into compliance. And I'm wondering if you can speak to, I'm just trying to rectify, we have a bylaw. The bylaw is clear for our community to understand. This proponent has not been in compliance with the bylaw. And instead of bringing them into compliance, we are being asked to give a variance to the bylaw so that they fit into not being out of compliance. And so not necessarily sure if this is to our Director of Corporate Services from a bylaw compliance perspective or to our development department, but I'm I'm having a hard time understanding what our compliance process has been to this date with the staff report. Because it's, and from what we're hearing, we're being asked to vary the bylaw for this so that they come into compliance. So I'm not clear at what point do we move through a compliance process with the proponent versus being asked what we're being asked to in this staff report.
Through the mayor to Councillor Jolicoeur, thank you for that question. This is a complex issue with this property and the signs to date. So the applicant came to staff and requested this variance, and because there was non-compliance issues and there was a previous report the council just considered about a month ago in regards to some of the compliance issues. And so it's been brought into compliance, and now this variance is being considered, and it's something that staff supports because it's going to be just on the south facing side of the building, and it meets the 20%, but the actual area does not meet the requirement. So staff is supportive of that variance.
I have one more clarification question, Mayor. That's okay. And so the lower than 20% is for the entire building envelope or just for the south side?
So through the mayor to Councillor Jolicoeur, the 20% is for fascia signs in total within the bylaw. And it means you can't have an area of fascia signs occupying more than 20% of the building. This is going to occupy 3% of the building face, or I should add in building face. And so we are saying in order to vary this, the condition is that it's only on the south side of the building. So it will not occur on the other sides of the building.
Kind of one more, just to clarify, I understand that the 20% in the bylaw, that's clear.
Yep.
Is that for the entire building envelope?
Through the mayor to Councillor Fish, it's for fascia signs only, not the building envelope itself. So you have to look at the available area of the building that would have fascia signs on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so places that couldn't have it don't get counted in that. All right, okay. And I don't see any questions online, so yeah, we can probably move with a motion. Let's Councillor Hilliard.
I'll move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And motion carries. On to 7.2.2, the development variance 2402 588 England Avenue. And are you going to continue, Ms. Wade?
Through the mayor to council, just I'm here to answer questions. This is fairly straightforward. It's just a line adjustment in a lot area to accommodate a subdivision and to get the building all on one lot.
Fair enough. So the recommendation has been moved and seconded for those who are online and might not be able to hear that. Are there any questions now that it's been moved? Seeing none, all those in favor? The motion carries. And we'll move on to 7.2.3, the update local area plan, Harmson Civic Precinct and Downtown Center. I'll pass it back to Ms. Wade.
Through the mayor to council, this update for you is in regards to two of your strategic priorities. One is the local area plan for the Harmson Civic Precinct, and the other is for the implementation of the Duncan Commons, Downtown Playbook, and also the Fifth Street staging. They are spread out over 2024 to 2026. This report consolidates a bunch of various policies and documents and bylaws that we have in relation to the downtown. And on November 2023, council passed a resolution for staff to look at the how to implement the Duncan Commons and to report back. So in this process, we initiated conversations with the liaison who's the executive director of the Comox Valley Arts. And I also worked with my colleague, Director Saunders. And we've been working with the group about the project and the implementation. Through that, we discovered that, and also I'd like to acknowledge Director Shaw as well. We have identified a bunch of infrastructure challenges that need to be addressed in order to support a lot of activation and programming as laid out in the downtown playbook. And there was also some transitions that were going on from the Wednesday markets, and the resulting project that has come out has been Pulse on the Plaza. And there's going to be four events where they have put together various activities for some live music, some art workshops, etc. And we've been in conversation with them. Unfortunately, I apologize, this has not been to you before that. We were a little busy with some provincial legislation, so we're getting to this now. But I did want to update council that behind the scenes, while we've been doing the provincial regulation, we have been working through this issue of how to implement not only the downtown commons, but the local area plan for Harmston, the downtown playbook, looking at the OCP policies for the downtown center, and trying to bring all those documents together. And what we found is that it has necessitated the need to relook at what is that local area plan boundary and how do we consolidate and bring all this information together so we can best inform the actions that have been outlined in the downtown playbook in a much more comprehensive, consolidated manner. So we have engaged Akistics for the first phase, which we've started on, and we've been conducting SWOT analysis and understanding what makes sense. And so the boundaries that are being proposed reflect that due diligence that we've been doing, and that we have been working internally. We've already had one meeting internally with staff and another one scheduled for next week. So we're working through this, bringing together all the documents, understanding it in a very comprehensive manner. And we do now have our working group that was identified in the downtown playbook. And so engineering, operations, rec, and us and fire are all together at the table now, working through this issue. And what is before you tonight is we're seeking support and approval of this new local area boundary and the consolidation of these documents so that we can move forward, and that we are going to work on an engagement strategy. We know that there's things outlined in the downtown playbook, and we would bring that back to council for your endorsement to roll out this process. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Fantastic. Really appreciate that detailed thing. And yes, we've had a few things over the years that have slowed it down. I was president of one of the arts organizations when the gallery opened 20 odd years ago. And this was part of the things that were talked about at that point. So really excited to see it coming forward and know that there's been a lot of effort by organizations as well as staff. So just want to acknowledge that. Councilor McCollum online.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for this report, Marianne. I think the approach here, really looking at kind of a broader scope when we're addressing the local area plan for Harmston makes a lot of sense to me. One thing I just would like a little bit more information about, or just to kind of hear the thinking around, is that, of course, there's some really key lands in the Harmston area, particularly where, the Lush Garden is currently, and some other city lands adjacent. And what I'm looking for is just some reassurance that we won't lose any of the detail or the planning that we've been kind of envisioning when we've been talking about the Harmston area. I really do agree that it makes sense to kind of zoom out of that area a little bit more and really incorporate it with what we're envisioning for the future for downtown. But I also don't want to lose our focus in that we do really need some really clear ideas on how we want to utilize that lot so close to our downtown core. So if you could just provide a little bit more on that, I'd appreciate it.
Through the mayor to Councillor McCollum, thank you for that question. And yes, I want to reassure council that all the work that has been done to date has been incorporated in with what we're calling the SWOT analysis. And though that background work will serve as the baseline as we move forward, and as we go through the process, the planning of those lands will all be incorporated into the local area plan. And there will, of course, will be engagement through the process. So we are definitely utilizing everything that we have and bringing it all together.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And thanks to Councillor McCollum for the question. And Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And I'd also like to say how encouraged I am to see staff bringing this strategic priority to the front. Well, 2 or 3, it sounds like, and also identify from my point of view politically, you know, they are maybe at different paces and interests for me. I know the downtown core and making that a wonderful place to hang out is forefront, and I'm always in a rush to do more down there. Whereas my gut feeling with the Harmston Park is that it might need to be played a lot slower, just because it's such a large piece of property with so many possibilities. It's, you know, it's a blank canvas in a way. But in any ways, in any case, I realize how connected they are and think this is a great plan. So thank you for doing that and look forward to seeing the work go on.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Frisch and Councillor Jolicoeur.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I was really happy to see this report and for the follow-up on our Duncan Commons resolution for the summer. And I think it makes sense with the capacity and some of the infrastructure challenges that were identified for the space, and happy to see that the group is moving forward with some programming, even with some of the challenges with existing program with the farmers market moving out of Wednesday evenings. But I guess my question is similar to Councillor Frisch. The resolution for Duncan Commons to advance some of the actions identified in the downtown playbook, for me at least, was because we are doing so much at the city, and it was feeling like that work was maybe sitting on a shelf and things weren't advancing, at least in my opinion, as fast as I would have liked to have seen. And so although I think from a strategic level, it makes sense to combine, as what's being recommended, some of these plans, I do have some questions around that. And so I guess my first question being, the staff report highlights some of the areas of why this will be helpful to combine these different plans. And I don't necessarily see an identification of any risks. And I don't have all those plans memorized, but I would like to understand what any potential risks of combining this would be. I understand that will be a community engagement process where community members and businesses will have an opportunity to participate. But yeah, I guess I'm just kind of curious, you know, the staff report lays out all the benefits of combining these, but I do wonder if there's any potential risks of combining them if we were to lose things, or if there's any potential maybe things that don't align with the different plans.
Through the mayor to Councillor Jolicoeur, thanks for that question. I guess what we were finding in our discussions about implementing things like the Duncan Commons in isolation of comprehensive planning is the risk to getting those programming activities is at a disadvantage because we don't have the infrastructure and the comprehensive planning to support it. From experience, I can speak to the need to actually really understand the infrastructure to support programming in place. It's really critical to understand our electrical plans, our lighting, our ability to light, street standards, traffic movements. We need to understand water availability, curb designs, things like that. There's a whole pile that helps to facilitate the programming in place. On top of that, it's also about looking at the development of those lands. So we have to look at the development of those lands and also the connectivity of those lands. And considering the number of projects we have moving, like the 6th Street bridge, and we've got traffic calming, we've got street enhancements, we've got little bits and pieces, and the risk of not pulling these all together is that it slows down other projects. So by being more comprehensive, we're reducing risk so that we can have an informed base plan to roll out things hopefully faster.
If no one else has another clarification question, Mayor, I have another one.
I think you've got the floor.
Okay. On page 4 of the staff report, it speaks about some of the work you've been doing, and you've highlighted that for phase 1 of the local area plan. And really happy to see that that work is ongoing and that we've hired a consultant and that you've brought together the team to advance that work. And it speaks to phase 2 being the development of design principles, partnerships, and incentives. And so I guess given that the phase 1, and it's later identified that we've approved the budget for phase 1 for this fiscal for the local area plan. And so is the plan to use that budget, and the phase 2 will incorporate not just the local area plan for Harmston, but also to advance the downtown playbook?
Through the mayor to Councillor Joker, yes, the idea is that by consolidating all this work, that it will be paid through the budget for the Harmston local area plan. And we're also supporting and informing design principles for the Harmston Park as well, and working closely with my colleague, Director Saunders, on that. So there's a lot of synergies with this work by bringing all this together to be able to inform other projects that are in the strategic priorities as well.
Do you have one more question? But
ask away.
I'm happy to support this. This is more of a comment with a question. I guess just sharing my opinion that I would like to see. I don't know what the timeline is for phase 2. It's not identified here, but I know I personally would like to see some sort of quick wins, whether it be about the precinct or the downtown playbook. I think that was in part why we brought forward the downtown Duncan Commons piece, just to start seeing some momentum going. And Councillor Frisch mentioned, like, I think that's where some of my energy is, and would love to hear if that's maybe in the phase 2 or phase 3 and what the timeline could be, and if you envision any quick wins in those plans that we can celebrate the advancement of some of the things we have planned.
Through the mayor to Councillor Joker, so with the pulling all the plans together, so that we will call it like the downtown local area plan. We will have a name. It is about bringing together the Harmston and the downtown and the playbooks and all those components together to establish a baseline. Then that will help to inform the projects that have been previously entered and outlined in the strategic priorities and all the other documents, and put it in some orderly fashion so we can figure out how we move things forward in a organized, streamlined fashion. And until we get through that phase and out the other side, I won't know that, but we will be reporting back as we go through the process. And that will hopefully help us to inform the 2025 budget as to what projects are easily able to be implemented.
Excellent. Councillor Frisch.
May I move a motion there? Yeah, I'll move receipt and direct staff to consolidate the Harmston Precinct, Downtown Playbook, and the Downtown Center with related land use plans community plans and policies into a comprehensive encompassing downtown area plan.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? And motion carries. So very, very exciting. It has been, I think it was 2005-ish or so that the art gallery opened. So it's been a minute, but really, really excited to see this moving forward. And I can probably speak for council who have spoken already that really, really looking forward to some of the actions. We're at 6:30, which is normally when we take our dinner break. So we're going to just recess probably until about 6:55 or so, and have our dinner, and then we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for your patience. We're just going to get underway and we're going to reconvene and have Glenn Sanford, the Executive Director of the Comox Valley Art Gallery, present an update. And so if you'd like to press the little silver button under your microphone, and I'll get your microphone turned on.
Okay, can you hear me? So one of the things that I notice is the clicker does not seem to be working right now. Oh. There you go. Let's try to go backwards one.
You can just say next slide and then
Is it not moving forward at all?
No. Yeah, we've got a pilot
so
here that
you're going to have to read my mind because this isn't a presentation that goes with next slide. I'm not really sure how to handle this, but
you could do like a gun, like
alrighty.
Or sorry, a finger wag.
Okay. Because the truth is, and we're not quite at even the first slide right now. Oh, fantastic. Oh, good. Turn it off and turn it on again, right? Okay. Shall I start now? Thank you very much. So first of all, hi, Mayor and council members and staff. Thank you very much for having us. My name is Glenn Sanford. I'm the Executive Director of the Comox Valley Art Gallery. And the first thing I want to say is we are very grateful to be operating on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. And I also want to express my deep gratitude to the City of Courtenay for the support that we receive to operate. And I want to give a particular shout out to the incredible staff who we work with on a regular basis to keep things going. It's been a while since we've presented. I think we want to move into slideshow presentation. But this is a slideshow that just covers the last few years because, like I say, it's been a while since we presented. And the first thing that I want to do is introduce Denise Lawson, who will talk a little bit about our convergent programming and what we aim to achieve in what we do.
Thanks, Glenn, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for taking time in your schedule to hear from us. So what drives us to do what we do? We have a mandate and we want to bring art to this community, but we also want to celebrate some of the art practice within the community. We want to be able to reach out to schools. We want to be able to reach out to all age groups within the community to help them experience art. We want to use art also a way of instigating important conversations. And you'll see as we go through the slideshow the kinds of conversations that we're looking at. And we're looking at topics that are relevant to this community in particular. So you'll see examples of that. And we take seriously accessibility. So our spaces, we try to make them accessible, and our programs are for all ages, all abilities. And we invite people in to get to know art and feel comfortable with it. And so I brought some things that I'll just leave for you to have a look at and share, that look at the ways in which we reach out to community and our lovely book. And I hope that all of you will come in and see the show that we have up currently by an artist from Quebec City. And one of the ways in which we've made this accessible is Dion is French speaking. So our programming is both in French and English. We also have started delivering information through video presentations of the artists speaking, talking about their work, because not everybody is a reader. Yeah, so those are some of the ways. And then of course, our Make Art series, so young and old can come in and engage with the art that's being shown. Today, we had 3 young adults. A few days ago, we had some kindergartners. And about a week and a half ago, we had 10 seniors from one of the senior centers come in and take in the show. So that's the breadth of our community reach, as well as people from out of town. A woman from Quebec was in today with her son.
Thanks for that, Denise. What I want to do while we're going through the slideshow in the background is to make a few key points about our gallery. So first of all, like all cultural and heritage institutions, we contribute to the health and well-being of our community. And I think that we all know the role that arts and culture plays in that. We link our community to the broader world of contemporary art, and we deeply explore themes that are relevant to our community, like Denise just said, themes such as reconciliation and decolonization, environment and climate, gender-based violence and resiliency, and many more. And all of our exhibitions are accompanied by community engagement activities designed to foster education and dialogue and a deep exploration of important subjects. And these activities include our All Ages Make Art projects, artist talks and performances, school tours, collaborations with a multitude of community organizations, and opportunities for dialogue that are in response to the themes that we explore. But I also got to make this point. In addition to contributing to the overall health of our community, we contribute to a healthy economy. Thanks to your support of the gallery, the annual grant, and the provision of a building, we're able to leverage literally hundreds of thousands of dollars each year that come into our community. And this is money that puts people to work, supports local businesses, and supports artists and the development of art in our community. And another way that we help both the economy and contributing to the future of our community is the amount of work that we put into training and career development to dozens of young people in our community through our youth media project, through our Canada Summer Jobs program, and through internships. In the last slide, actually, you saw the renovations that we undertook a couple of years ago that increased accessibility at the gallery as well as improved our presentation space. Some of you may have seen Go Fish, the video installation that had its world premiere at our gallery in the new space in the George Sawchuk room. That installation is traveling across the country and beyond. It just showed at the National Gallery, and everywhere it goes, it is acknowledged that the Comox Valley Art Gallery played a key role in developing this amazing installation that is about the importance of herring migration in our community. Another thing is we've really developed our technology so that we can do hybrid events, as you can see in this slide, where we bring people in both. Well, it's kind of hidden on the screen, but you can see people are zooming in while there's live audiences, and we're able to connect people from a lot of communities in our events, thanks to our growing technology. I'm just going to sort of skip through a couple of slides that show some of our recent shows, but there's some specific projects that I want to tell you about. One is just to make sure that you're aware that the artwork that you see at the Comox Hospital, that's in this slide here, that was produced by the Comox Valley Art Gallery. Much of the work that is in the reception, and that was in collaboration with Comox elders and so on. In addition to that, we do things like our STREAM project, where we work with young, primarily women, in developing their skills in arts and technology. One of the things that they've done is they created a Lego model of the art gallery, which is maybe harder than it sounds. It took them a very long time, and they are now doing a Lego model of the library. And next, it'll be basically all of downtown, but the streets connecting it and so on. So they're a very ambitious group. There's the Walk With Me project, the Youth Media project, and also our ongoing commitment to decolonialization and reconciliation. I dug through our files a little bit because I found the last known photo of Mayor Wells without sunglasses in public. And I want to give a special shout out to our staff team, who are renowned around the country for working with artists to develop amazing installations and amazing artwork. And I'm just going to conclude. I know I'm pretty much out of time right now by saying the art gallery is now 50 years old. We were born as the Central Island Arts Alliance, known as the Arts Alliance, known mostly as the Joint. It was run by a bunch of hippies in a ramshackle old building on McPhee, put together by local artists and draft dodgers and so on, who eventually blossomed into the art gallery that we are today. And I also want you to know, anybody that was at Music Fest, that one of the very first projects of that art gallery, almost exactly 50 years ago today, was the very first Renaissance Fair. On that note, I just want to say thank you for looking at another 5-year agreement. And thank you for your ongoing help to help us in our mission to contribute to a healthy community, a healthy economy, and a really vibrant cultural life in downtown Courtenay.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Great presentation, great photos, and glad we were able to get the clicker to click. Really, I don't know if I appreciate that secret photo. We'll have to get some people on that one to permanently delete it, but yeah, Photoshop some sunglasses on there or something. But no, really appreciate it, and really appreciate all the work is done, not just by employees, but volunteers, the artists themselves. I think we just have, again, as you mentioned, just a vibrant and amazing community. So thanks so much for your presentation. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions about the presentation, but I think we've got Joy's going to give us a quick staff report as well. So I'll pass it over to Joy.
Thank you, Glenn, for that great presentation through the mayor and council. The purpose of today's report is to seek approval for the attached license to occupy and management operating grant for service agreement with the Comox Valley Art Gallery Society. The society has been a core cultural service provider and partner with the city since 2004. We entered into a formal license agreement at the Center for the Arts. Through managing and operating the art gallery and delivering arts and cultural services, the art gallery receives grant funding from the city. The license to occupy provides the following. It is a 5-year license with 3 options to renew, each for 5 additional years. And it involves the use of the main floor and the basement of the Center for the Arts and the plaza. There's also a 1-year license to occupy a portion of the second floor of the Center for the Arts. It replaces a memorandum of understanding entered into in 2020. The memorandum of understanding was a temporary agreement for the use and occupation of a portion of the second floor that was previously occupied by the Comox Valley Economic Development Society. It also incorporates a single office space that the society held a lease for. The 3 separate agreements are now replaced by the 1 single agreement, and this is easier for staff to manage administratively. It clarifies the respective repairs, the maintenance, responsibilities of each party. It also identifies the art gallery as the primary license holder on the second floor, and that has specific responsibilities involved with that license. the proposed management operating agreement, grant for service agreement outlines the service deliverables required to be met by society in return for the annual grant funding. So financial implications in 2024, I'll just summarize what the 2024 amounts are: $115,500,000 in gaming and tax revenue funded grants, and in-kind support, which is the use of the space, the city's provision of repairs, maintenance, and utilities, is valued at approximately $191,000. License fee is for $1, so there's no rent or annual fee required from the society. The difference between the license fee and the estimated market rent is considered assistance to the organization, and will be required under the community charter to publish notice of this assistance. And with the recommendation before you, we welcome your questions.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And we have Councillor Frisch.
And no specific questions. I just wanted to thank staff for supporting this process and making it possible for this key community asset to be run so well. And really excited to support this. And thank you to Glenn and your coworkers for coming out.
Excellent. Councillor Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I also just want to thank the art gallery for taking on and for this staff report that clearly articulates the additional role of the coordination of the second floor as a primary license. So thank you for that, because I know that many organizations in the community make use of the boardroom, for example. And so I think having that clarity will make it easier for our community partners to access the space. So thank you for taking that on, and just want to share my my thanks for the presentation and really clearly articulating the value of bringing community together in spaces and celebrating culture and inspiring community members to see the potential of art and culture as a means for bringing people together. And I think in the state of the world that we're in, where in some communities art and culture is under attack, I'm really proud that you know, this council has clearly articulated the importance of art and culture, and really hopeful that you can continue to bring community together as we go through what we're going through as a society. And I'm really happy to support this. Thanks.
Thanks very much. I don't see any further questions or comments. Oh, Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. If you'll permit me a moment of vanity, while I was away this past month, I had the opportunity to tour the Sydney Opera House. And apart from that being a magnificent experience, it was a lesson in the struggle that is involved to establish art and culture. The vagaries of different government approaches, you know, and just the importance of public sector support for the arts. And I just want to reinforce that experiences like that make me realize what a treasure we have here in the Comox Valley that we want to build and help to continue to nurture. And I thank all of you for being a big part of that.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Hillian. Yeah, and again, you know, one of my first offices was on the second floor there, and it was just a great space, so creative, so much support from everybody there. So really glad to see that this is continuing. I do have a serious question though, just because as the City of Courtenay, we're entering into a contract and we're charging you about $1 or so, and just wondered, as it is, I believe the Comox Valley in the title, what other local governments are sort of contributing at par, let's say, as the City of Courtenay is?
Great question. So the regional district contributes this year $16,000, and the town of Comox contributes $5,000, and that's that's what we receive from other at other municipal levels.
Okay. All right. And I guess maybe this might be more of a staff question, but if we were to say, what would the market value of what we're, you know, I know we're charging $1, but is there a market value that is, that we could use as a bit of a comparator? I know this, I'm asking out of the blue, so if there's no answer, I totally get it.
Through the mayor and council, there is a market value established, and that is how we determine the assistance, the value of the assistance. So if a space were to be rented, the cost for a triple net lease, which means there's a base rent and then there's also additional amounts covered for expenses for repairs, maintenance, and property taxes, the value would be approximately $191,000.
Okay, thanks so much. Councilor McCollum, did you still have a question or?
Yeah, I hesitated to ask because it's kind of a minor one. Yeah, just on the $14 per square foot amount, that seems very low to me for $14 per square foot for an entire year. How do we determine that number? It just, from what I know of commercial space downtown, it seems like it would be more expensive than that. So just wondering what the comparative was.
That's a great question. So we did a review of the market rent available for available space, and that was a comparable provided for a multi-tenanted building. And also another thing to consider is we do not have a lease policy of what the rate should be for our city-owned properties. That is something that I understand will be developed in the future, and that will help establish the market rate based on, it could be appraisals, it could be further analysis, but based on just a cursory review of what is on the market, that's how we establish that rate.
Thanks, that's helpful.
Excellent. And I have a small follow-up, or actually, I'll ask my follow-up since we're sort of talking the finances right now. I didn't hear a number from Cumberland. Did I miss, or is Cumberland not part of the?
You did not miss.
Okay. Councillor Jolicoeur.
I really appreciate, Mayor. Thank you for that question, because it is to hear the numbers, and on page 6 of the staff report clearly lays out a 5-year financial commitment that the city of Courtenay is making in the 300,000 plus mark each year for the next 5 years. And to hear some of our regional partners and their contributions, it's quite stark in the comparison. So just another thought for us to have some conversations with our colleagues around how they view their commitment to art and culture. But my question is actually for staff. On that same page, page 6 of the staff report, in-kind contribution, we have the permissive property tax exemption, and we I know are doing some work on that. And so I'm wondering how the new plan forward around permissive property tax might impact the dollar amounts that are here, and what might potentially be recommended as a path forward for the art gallery pending the new policy implementation.
Did you give me the mic? I was
sorry. Sorry. Yeah, no, I was looking at the wrong person. Sorry, Councillor.
I can speak to permissive tax. So that is a great question for council. You guys could think about it over the next couple of months as we go through bringing the policy back. It'll likely be a couple times before council, because items like these are challenging. You know, since the occupier is in a municipally owned building, we typically give 100% exemption. That's how it's been done in the past. That does not mean that that's what we have to do in the future.
Right. And I think just good for our partners to know that we are taking a look at permissive tax exemptions, and we haven't made a decision on what that might mean, but we have those numbers for the next 5 years. So not wanting to preclude what might happen in those discussions, but it is just something, because in this report and the next report, it clearly outlines what those dollar amounts are. So thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Jolicoeur, and maybe just a final comment on the finances for those that might be listening. That some of that does come through the gaming funds that we get. So that it's kind of maybe a more general fund, but again, really appreciate your insight today on the financial stuff. Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Well, I certainly appreciate the questions on the finances. I'm a bit of an accountant in my own right, and I guess I wanted to point out that we can see here the price that it would go for on the market, but the value provided by, of course, these organizations is somewhat priceless. And community building, it's hard to put a number on. And when I think of Cumberland and Comox, I know I travel there with my family all the time for a variety of different things. And they do things that we don't pay for. And I'm often the first to say, you know, sometimes it feels like our shoulders in Courtney are a little heavier, but I also go mountain biking in Cumberland and ride all over their trails all day long with my kids and into the, you know, to the boat launch down in Comox, the marina there. So anyways, I'm happy to support this financial piece for the art gallery and really thank them for stepping up to manage this and make it what it is. I'm happy to do this part financially. Thanks.
And are you moving a motion?
Absolutely, and I'll move the recommendation.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And motion carries. All right, and next we have the Comox Valley Community Art Council license to occupy. And again, thank you so much for your presentation. And I'll pass it back over to Ms. Chan.
Through the mayor and council, the purpose of this report is to seek approval for the attached license to occupy and amended grant fee for service agreement with the Comox Valley Community Art Council. It also outlines a process in the report for determining Comox Valley Arts' future grant fee for service deliverables. Their grant fee for service agreement is coming due at the end of 2025, and there are some process in the report that we'd like to seek council's approval to move forward. So Comox Valley Arts was brought in as a core cultural service provider in 2020 to provide cultural services aligning with recommendations from the Cultural Service Review carried out in 2019. The license to occupy provides for the following: a 2-year license to occupy a portion of the second floor of the Center of the Arts. It also replaces a memorandum of understanding from 2020 for the Arts Council to occupy a portion of the second floor space previously occupied by Comox Valley Economic Development Society. So they share that space that used to be occupied by the Economic Development Society. It also clarifies respective parties' responsibilities for parents and maintenance. So the amended management grant fee for service, the amended grant for service agreement is an administrative amendment. It's correcting the annual grant schedule contained in the grant agreement. It extends the schedule to 2025 to align with the original term of the agreement. Financial implications start 2024. So there is $58,400 in grant funds funded by tax revenue, and it increases 2% annually. And in-kind support for the use of the space, the city's provision of repair, maintenance, and utilities of approximately $22,950. License fee is $1, and no fee or rent is payable by Comox Valley Arts for this license. And the assistance will be required to be published in the newspaper as required by the community charter. So finally, we'd like to seek the approval on the process for determining the future grant fee for service deliverables in the Comox Valley Arts grant agreement. The Comox Valley Arts recently carried out a review of its organizational strategic priorities and programs. They requested a renegotiation of the fee for service agreement deliverables. Staff are proposing that the review of these deliverables be subject to recommendations of the future strategic cultural plan, and which is anticipated to be finalized by the end of this year. This will position both the city and the Comox Valley Arts to be able to review deliverables as they align with the city's strategic priorities and collaborative opportunities that are contained in a future grant agreement. The process of negotiation review will occur over 2025 before the grant agreement expires. And with this conclusion, I'd like to open the floor for questions.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. Not with the intent of prolonging the meeting unnecessarily, but I'm just wondering if there's any update on the work of the Art Council from personnel involved, as we've heard with the art gallery.
Through the mayor to Councillor Hillian, the Art Council will come in the fall. That's when they traditionally do come to council to report on their activities. So they will be coming, and they've confirmed that they will be coming in the fall. Unfortunately, with the timing of the staff report, they were not able to put together a presentation. However, I think there has been recent updates about some partnering activities that Comox Valley Arts is carrying out with the Link staff. In a mural project. So that's an example of some of the work that the Comox Valley Arts is collaborating the city with.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And I mean, I'll just maybe comment that, I think your one response there around the financial implications on the previous item around triple net and all those kinds of things, that really appreciate that staff are really looking at this in terms of what the costs are, and that, yeah, maybe there's room for improvement, but it gives us some good information to make our decisions. Councillor Hillian.
I'll move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And motion carries. Right, and we'll move on to external reports and correspondence. So we have a letter of support from the Village of Cumberland, strengthening communities grant expiration. All right, it's been received. Any questions or comments? And this is just in regards to the strengthening communities grant. So we thank Village of Cumberland. And with that, we'll move on to the next letter. All those in favor, actually anyone against receipt? So seeing none, we'll do a consent reception on that. And then the second one is a donation request from SD 71, the Youth Climate Action Event. And they have a couple of, they have a request for assistance, and there's a couple of options that have been presented to council. So I don't know if there's any questions around that, and we'll start with Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I was perhaps I'm cutting to the chase too quickly, but it's getting on the late side. This was an incredibly valuable experience. I know that you were there, and in 2020, as was I, for that gathering. It was a remarkable moment for the hundreds of students who were there. And while I know, in terms of looking at the requests, that we do, we do have option one, which is to advise them that they could go to the community foundation. I just feel this fits squarely with the sort of the values of the city. It's not a substantial amount, and so I'd be prepared to move the request option that's on the screen currently rather than option one, if anyone's willing to second that.
In second, did you want to speak further to it?
I don't think there's a lot more that needs to be said, but again, just squarely in line with what we do, and a small way of contributing to a really remarkable event.
Thanks so much. And yeah, as you mentioned, the 2020 event was absolutely amazing. I speak to it frequently, mainly because they gave me a name tag that I use all the time still. And but the impact that it's had on the students was absolutely amazing, and really appreciate all those that are involved. Councillor Gilles.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. In the not the staff report, but in the background document under additional information provided by staff, it speaks to the amended bylaw. So the bylaw that's the benefit continuum doesn't take effect until September 1st, but the event is November 13th. But I'm just trying to understand the timing here, because you've laid out the current bylaw fee and under the new fee. And so I'm just trying to understand, like, if an event happens after bylaw implementation, but someone books prior to that, they fall under the existing bylaw? I'll just let staff clarify about that.
Staff will respond. We'll move to Susie, Ms. Saunders, and then Ms. O'Connor.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Jolicoeur. So we provided both these for reference point. So our current software system is only set up to charge the current fees. So it will take the month of August and many months prior to get the system to change over on September 1st. There's not really ways to run parallel systems for us. So we've provided what the fee will be in November. As to which fee they actually pay, to be honest, at this point will depend on when the software transition happens. Ideally, most folks are paying the bylaw fee as of September 1st, but we have bookings that are made years in advance sometimes, and so there's always exceptions as to how that transition happens over time according to the software and when folks pay. But as you can see, the fee difference is not significant.
I do have another clarification question, Mayor. and
absolutely.
I don't really know who, if staff can speak to it. There's no representatives from the group here, but I was really excited about our facility rental and user fee bylaw and the continuing benefit, and it's quite clearly articulated where this group would fall under. And we did have a fairly robust conversation around government-like organizations like school districts. And so I'm less inclined to support the first request, especially given that they previously had paid the fees, and more open about the $5,000 cash donation from our $75,000 council budget line. And I guess I'll just share my concern is that one of the pieces that we debated and discussed during the facility rental user fee bylaw conversation was the one-off requests coming to council, and we included that as an opportunity for staff to bring forward. And what I'm not seeing clearly articulated here is support from staff. Maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but I do worry that, and I totally support this event. I'm really excited that we're hosting it again, but I would say that I do get concerned that this sets a precedent. And I think that we've had maybe one with the farmers market as well, that we have a bylaw that clearly articulates what we want to do with facility fees. And we have groups coming to us asking for us to waive fees. So I'll just kind of put that in the center of our circle today, that I just don't like the feeling of setting precedents that people can just come to us every time that they want their facility fees waived. And I do judge that a school district would have $1,700 to pay for a facility rental, although it doesn't quite clearly articulate in the budget that they can't meet that, but they are requesting it. So I'm not sure if staff have any thoughts, and if they can speak to any impact that this might have in their relationships with people who are booking our facilities. Thanks.
All right, thanks. And I'll pass it over to Mr. Garbutt, and then
Thank you. Through the mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Jolicoeur. Staff have been given direction to come forward, spend time to develop processes. They're based on commonly understood principles and best practice in the industry, and we came back to council with those. And so our staff would be of the opinion that we should follow our bylaw requirements. We're not being, as this was a piece of correspondence that came in. If you're asking what our staff recommendation would be to follow our very recently considered and rational approach. I do recall great questions about how this would apply, how this could apply, and many discussions around different iterations. And we are relying on the community benefits, I would say, philosophy that is underlying all of these. So our staff recommendation would be to apply the charges, and then council has discretion to support that. Can advise that it's our understanding that the requests to the town and the village were not approved. That's to the best of our knowledge at this point. And if Ms. Saunders had anything else she wanted to, thank you.
And I don't think it's clear about I don't think the electoral areas through the Comox Valley Regional District, whether or not they've been approached or made a decision on this. And the person I normally ask about those things has left but I'm going to pass it over to Ms. O'Connell, actually.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to council. In my haste to try and capture or translate that into a motion, I missed the seconder. So I had Councillor Cole Hamilton as the mover. That was Councillor Frisch, thank you. And then I'd just like to clarify, as that isn't presented in a comprehensive motion, that I'm capturing the motion in a way that reflects council's intent. So how I've captured what's on the screen, if it with council's desire being through that motion to introduce this as the option, so that council waive all facility costs for the Philbrook Center for the symposium for November 13th and 14th of 2024, and that council make a 5,000 donation in support of overall expenses of the Youth Climate Action event from the council discretionary fund.
Clarification, I guess, we don't do donations, right? It would be a grant.
Thank you, Councillor Jolicoeur. The way Councillor Cole Hamilton introduced it was what was on the screen. So what is on the screen was a request for a donation. So council is welcome to make an amendment to reformat that as a grant if you'd like.
Ms. Saunders.
Just to follow up on that, I would ask for clarity on facility costs. At this point, there are both rental fees covered under the fees and charges bylaw, but there are a number of other associated facility costs with events, including staff time, SOCAN fees, et cetera. So would ask for council's clarification on what would be included or not included in facility costs, because it can be quite wide-ranging.
All right, appreciate that. And Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. Obviously very keen to support any support for youth, especially in the area of climate change action. We are in an awkward position because Councillor Cole Hamilton is not in the room. And so it's hard to ask him what his intentions were. So, you know, wanting to support, but also wanting to be fair and in line with what we've just recently passed as our policy, it might be worthwhile just doing one or the other, whether it's some sort of a donation or a waiving of costs for the facility. It might make a lot more sense. In fact, there's support around the table to do either of those. So,
and again, when Councillor Cole Hamilton returns, we can ask him about the electoral area services, because I mean, maybe if they haven't made a decision or haven't been approached, there may be something that sort of fills that gap, as it were. So some of this, you missed a very exciting discussion here. So, but just to catch you up a little bit, so there's just some questions around this because we do have that policy. So one question is whether, and you might not know, but whether or not the electoral area services have been approached or have made a decision for anything. We do know or you know, believe that the town of Comox and the village of Cumberland were not going to support this financially, but we don't know about the electoral areas. And again, fully understand that we're discussing this on the fly.
I don't have that information off the top of my head. No, I don't. I've attended all of their meetings. I don't recall a request going in there, but I can't say that with absolute certainty.
Okay, so there might be an opportunity, if based on where this conversation is going, that that a request either from us go back to the SD or off to them to see if they'd contemplate it. And we've got lots of lights, so I'll maybe stop talking and I'll pass it over to Councillor Jolicoeur.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a quick question for, just to reiterate, I won't be supporting waiving our bylaw for facility costs, but if there was any interest in supporting some financial contributions, that's something that I would support. But I do have a question for our finance team. Where are we at right now with council discretionary funds, the actuals of that 75 for the year? Okay, thanks.
So while we're waiting, yeah, so we'll let you work on that. One of the things that has been suggested is that possibly we sever these because there's really two questions going on here. And potentially if we sever it, then even if there is that wish to change the term donation to grant, it just simplifies it because again, so I'm not sure where council feels around this, but with that, I'll pass it over to Councillor. I'll try to find your microphone. There we go.
So currently in the council initiatives project budget, there is a residual amount of $41,264.
Okay, and Mr. Garvin.
Through the mayor to council, just for some information, and I'm not trying to wade into a political discussion. We are estimating the impact of the request to waive facility costs as well as the estimated donation. The value is in the area of $6,175. That is a $1,715 impact in rental costs. And if council was to provide the monies as requested, just wanted to make sure we were able to just share that information with you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Healy.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm in agreement with the points that Councillor Jolicoeur has raised and staff comments about the policy. And based on that, I'm opposed to waiving the facility costs, but I'm in favor of making a $5,000 cash donation. Thanks.
Would you like to sever the the way the motion is right now, or should we just?
If I could speak quickly, I mean, I'd be in favor of helping them cover our costs and other things with some sort of donation. 5,000 seems reasonable, and we could have it come from our council. What do we call that account again? Yeah, our council discretionary fund.
First issue.
And so if you like, I'll move that we sever those so that we can make that possible. Okay, yeah, sure. If we sever those, then we can tackle it like that.
Excellent. Does that need to be seconded or voted on? Voted on though? No. So we're severed? Excellent. Okay. Been divided. Okay. So now that it's been divided, we'll look at point 1 on there for now. And are there any further questions or comments on number 1? Again, my only comment is that if it is defeated, that we maybe follow up with the electoral areas to see the CVRD, we should say, Comox Valley Regional District, to see if they would be willing to provide some funding as well, as a bit of a, Councillor Jolicoeur.
Yeah, just because this has come up a few times and I'm trying to remember, I'm looking to staff, like in the bylaw, the facility rental fee bylaw, there was a clause that we approved that you can come back, staff could come back. Was that process followed here? I really don't want to set a precedent, because whether it's this group or another group, and we all support the good work that groups do, I wonder if there's a level of clarity or communication we need to send back out to the community around this. I think it puts us in an awkward position every time. And I don't have the bylaw memorized, I apologize, but I do recall there being some language in there and an appropriate process established.
Ms. Saunders.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Jolicoeur. In the bylaw, there are no provisions for staff to adjust the fees. So the fees as outlined in the bylaw and the categories must be applied according to the bylaw, and only council has the authority to adjust the fees that are charged. Under the framework, which is our policy document, it does provide guidance to staff as to when staff would come forward with recommendations to council on adjusting fees. So for example, the Comox Valley Farmers Market is an example of, based on the policy, the fees and charges policy, there was enough rationale and alignment that staff would bring forward that recommendation. And then also we brought forward the recommendation that it comes with an agreement on service deliverables. But staff otherwise would only come forward with recommendations where there is that clear alignment with the fees and charges policy, which really has to be tied to significant community benefit, that can't be met through the current community benefit-based approach to setting fees. So the bylaw itself does not allow that. And our message to individual renter groups, which we have thousands of, is that these are the fees as set by council. They need to be applied. They are applied consistently. But of course, any group can approach council to request an adjustment to those fees. And that is a process that comes to the council table.
And I believe when we were talking about the change that's going to take effect in September 1st, one of the things we talked about, and I don't know if it's a policy or not, was that organizations would also be told you can apply to the community foundation for grants. So, yeah. So with that, Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, I just wanted to catch up on what I missed. So the concern is that the regional district might be we'd like to see the regional district contribute more, and that's why the facility fee, you're wanting the regional district to cover that?
No,
Okay, sorry.
no.
Okay, no.
It was just, the only reason I threw that in there is Town of Comox, Village of Cumberland, where we believe have already said no. But if it almost goes to the comment I just made, there may be an opportunity for SD 71 to go. That might be an opportunity for them to find some money somewhere else that could cover those costs.
It does seem that, unless I'm misreading the budgets, that the CVRD is contributing $6,400 in consultant time, which is actually larger than this request. So it seems that, anyway, if that's the avenue that we're all thinking it should go in, I'm not sure there's necessarily an argument that the CVRD can or should be contributing even more than we are. Anyway, I'm going on the mayor's summation of the discussion that I missed while I was out of the room. So,
yeah. No, and you've answered the question because we didn't have an answer, so that's the only reason I said it might be. I see it on page 2.
It's in the budget, yeah.
Absolutely, but just no one saw that, so that's why it was a possibility. That was it. So now it's not a possibility. No, I appreciate that, Councillor Cole Hamilton. Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to clarify, it's nothing to do with us thinking that the regional district should cover the costs. And I think it's not up to us to suggest to the school district where they should go looking for money. Our job is to determine what we want to do about what we've been asked. And it's been pointed out both through council members and staff that we're effectively going against the policy that we worked quite hard to establish, and staff are recommending that we stay to the policy of not waiving facility costs. And you know, we're not dealing with a penniless organization here. They do have several months before the event happens. They have the opportunity to go to the community foundation or elsewhere. And by us not waiving the cost, but providing a grant, which may in fact cover most of the costs, I think we're helping out in a significant way.
Hopefully that makes sense. Sorry, you missed sort of that conversation. So, but I really appreciate you finding that nugget of information, because I was looking and obviously didn't see it. And only because I haven't heard from Councillor McCollum, I will just, before we call the vote, if just confirming you don't have any comments. Okay, so with that, these have been divided. So we're just voting on number 1, waiving all facility costs. The motion on the floor is to waive them. So I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And motion fails. And we will move on to the second, which is a $5,000 cash donation. Again, the motion is to provide this. And so all those in favor? Any opposed? And motion carries unanimously. So thanks for that. Sorry, it was a bit of a journey. Yes, Councillor, or sorry, you're not a councillor at all. Mr. Garbick, our city manager.
Just to clarify, so the source of funds would be the council discretion. Just to clarify, the options that were presented in front of council were such that. Thank you.
And yeah, and part of that journey, we were talking about grants and donation, but I think everybody's pretty comfortable. It's just a term. Ms. O'Connell?
Sorry, you moved quite quickly. I need to mark down who was in opposition. So I was looking and then I missed it. So can you just clarify who was in opposition to the vote regarding the facility costs?
Councillor Cole Hamilton was the only one that I saw it?
Okay, so everyone but Will.
Yeah. Yes. Right, sorry. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for clarifying that, Ms. O'Connell. All right. And moving along, next on our agenda, we have 8.3 letter from Comox Valley for Palestine. And if somebody would like to receive. Miss, is this?
Move receipt.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McCollum, for moving receipt. Much appreciated. And Councillor Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the Comox Valley for Palestine. And I know many of my colleagues met with the group over the last few months to hear their concerns. And the letter, although strongly worded, I think clarifies some pieces that I think are important for the community to be made aware of. And I think that's in part because I think generally there's a sense of discouragement from political leaders at all levels on this issue. And I totally empathize with that, the Comox Valley for Palestine. You know, their points of wanting to come and share their concerns to Courtenay Council is well taken. I think that one of the things that I've recognized in the rhetoric that they speak about politically in Canada is one that I haven't heard at this council. And I would say that myself and others on council have been clear on our personal views on this matter through petitions and otherwise. And I know that many of the community members have met with colleagues on council and they've been able to hear their opinions on this matter as well. And I would just reiterate, I think that one of the challenging points, you know, a year and a half into my role on city council is really to understand that you know, we do have responsibilities clearly laid out for us at the municipal government level. And I think my colleagues have communicated that we are all free to share our personal opinions. And, you know, as someone who has been quite active in the community, this community and others on this file, I think that it's been a challenge for me to understand my role as a city councillor, but I have been you know, supported in my understanding of the city's responsibility to speak on international issues. And so I did want to just take the opportunity to acknowledge their continued advocacy and for their continued support for Palestinians and for the Palestinian plight in the face of what, you know, most observers, international observers are clearly articulating as plausible genocide. And so and that is not something to hold lightly on. And so I do want to just, you know, clarify that as a supporter for the cause, that this is something that I think that we did our best within the context of a city council, and that our statement clearly articulated what others in the region have articulated in the village of Cumberland and many other municipal governments. And I would just say that as an ally to this cause, that I'm always open to having conversations and showing my support. And yeah, just wanting to thank them for their continued advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge that the point made by the group that there may be a double standard and a perhaps a Eurocentric view from myself, I'll just speak about myself, may in fact be a reality, although unintentional. And so I just want to acknowledge that, you know, the ease at which we did speak out against the war in Ukraine was quite different than how we came about our statement for the Israel-Palestine issue. And I don't know a lot about world politics, so but I don't know that that's an excuse. So I just want to acknowledge that that possibly does exist, and I appreciate them pointing that out.
Thanks, Councillor Frisch, and I just want to, Councillor Killian.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to state for the record that Councillor Moran and myself met with representatives of the group heard about the issues that they felt we should take a stand on. They indicated to us that they were fine with not presenting as a delegation, and the issues that they raised were captured in the statement that we did in fact make. I've had correspondence from one of those individuals to indicate that there was a disagreement in their group, and not uncommon with community groups that are somewhat ad hoc in nature. People feel very strongly about this, but we did in fact make a statement that captured the points that the delegates that we met with asked us to cover, and on that basis, I reject the accusations that are being made against this council of racism and such. It's obviously an incredibly complicated issue, and that in fact is why it's difficult for us to stray into these waters. And that's all I want to say about it. Thank you.
And thanks so much, Councillor Hillian and Councillor Frisch.
I just want to quickly thank Councillor Hillian and Morin for doing that, and mainly speaking from my own perspective and on my own behalf before.
Thanks. And with that, all those in favor of receiving the correspondence, and that's motion carries, and we'll move on to internal reports and correspondence, and we have a Sid Williams Theatre capital projects update. Mr. Parvit.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, we have a briefing note, very exciting project, quite a impactful capital project at Sid Williams Theatre. The briefing note gives an overview of the works and identifies some other future capital improvements. Staff are here for questions if you have them, and I wanted to acknowledge Ms. Renz, our colleague that is the leader at the Sid Williams, who's also here in support of the briefing note.
All right. So with that, Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. It strikes me that it's a very substantial amount of money that needs to be raised, and it's good to have the briefing note. I'm not sure if there's going to be more asked of us in terms of working to raise the funds that are required for these major capital improvements.
All right, and Ms. Jan.
Through the mayor to Councillor Hillians. So we are working with the Sid Williams Theatre and developing an asset management plan for their theatre capital requirements. And through this process, we will identify the capital priorities and the projects over the next 5 years. Part of that is also as asking the city, providing detail on how the projects will be funded and what will they be asking from the city in terms of any financial contributions. And this in return will help us provide capital budgets for the future.
All right, thanks for that. And Councillor Frisch.
Well, not that we're being asked to make any decisions, so I'll really just say thanks for the report. And like the last issue about the Comox Valley Art Gallery, this is another, really in my mind, world-class amenity that we have in Courtenay. The ability to watch the quality of shows and productions and arts that come through Sid Williams is amazing. So I'm happy to, of course, I'm happy to see this go through. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks for that. All right. I don't see any further questions or comments, so I don't believe we moved the motion just yet. So, all right. And all those in favor? And motion carries. All right. Thanks for that. And we'll move into unfinished business. We have a delegation to amend the building bylaw 3114 from 2023. And if somebody would like to Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that council direct staff to report back on the options and implications of permitting homes older than 15 years to be relocated within the city of Courtenay.
All right. We had a little, I think our PowerPoint took off. But with that, there we go. So we've got that. It's on the floor. Any questions or comments before we take the vote? Seeing none. Councillor Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I guess my question to staff, this, what's the length of work on this? This department has quite a large work plan. We have a lot of competing priorities. We heard about some of them tonight. I'd like to hear how we might see this fitting into the existing work plan and what the timeline potentially could be, because from the delegation, it seemed like this was something that they were looking for, something maybe closer to immediate, but typically my understanding is this could, building bylaw amendments can take some time. So I'm wondering if we can speak to timeline and then, the viability of this fitting into the existing work plan with the staff that we have currently.
Mr. Garvin.
Thank you. I'll start and I'll ask Ms. Wade, who's responsible for this area. A considerable amount of work has already been done on this. The issue of age of moved on buildings was actually included in the notwithstanding the delegation didn't really highlight that it was in fact part of our building bylaw update, and there is a clear rationale as to what and why. Other jurisdictions have slightly different rules with much more significant practical impact. So we would take council's direction. There are a number of options to take no action as it relates to this because of the thought and the process and the background. And we believe we've sent council a link to that staff report, or we can figure out how to include it if council wants to prioritize that work. But I can say that our building department is at the forefront of all of the building regulations that are out there. So I don't know, Ms. Wade, if you could speak to timeline potentially for the work. Ms. Wade.
Yep. Through the mayor and the city manager to Councillor Jolicoeur. Thank you for acknowledging the workload in the department. It is fairly significant, but to the city manager's comment, when we amended the building bylaw, consideration was given to this 15 years. So we do have background on it.
Okay.
So we can take council's direction and would be happy to come back with a report outlining why 15 years was selected.
Thanks.
All right, thanks so much. And seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor? All right, motion carries, and we'll move into bylaws. Do we have a long time to get through the bylaws?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy to push through if everybody else is okay with that, and then yeah, just to get through bylaws, if that's all right. So we'll start with the first bylaw, Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. I move that council give first, second, and third readings to Council Code of Conduct bylaw number 3150/2024, and that council repeal the existing Council Code of Conduct policy effective upon adoption of Council Code of Conduct bylaw number 3150.
Thanks for that. And Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you, Council. So the report outlines that some of the work was done in the background around some of the decision points in regard to the options. And this took place within the in-camera component, so that is recognized within the report. Excuse me. But bringing bylaws forward, bylaws have to be done completely within the public realm. So essentially, I tried to outline as best as I could the decisions that were made within those in-camera meetings specific to who is eligible to make a complaint, whether or not, or what type of model we were using. So examples include third-party investigators or integrity commissioners, or looking at doing things in-house. Through a series of discussions and decision points with council, I had enough information and direction to work with external legal counsel to develop this bylaw. There was the need to fill in some of the blanks, so I did the best I could to try and embody what I believed was council's intent with moving forward with this level and detail of a code of conduct. So hopefully that reflects it. In the event that it doesn't, you'll see tonight, my recommendation is for council to consider first, second, and third. So if you do anticipate making changes or needing amendments, obviously that recommendation would need to change to just first and second. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. At the same time, questions around the practical application of the code. I'm learning this process as much as council is, and not to sound like a lawyer, but to reflect lawyers' comments. It really will depend. So in the event that this bylaw moves forward and council does adopt it, what the intent would be to bring in legal to do some training to allow us to workshop some examples. That way we're all a bit more familiar or comfortable with what the application would look like. That way we're not ideally applying it for the first time in a real scenario. At the same time, I will be working with legal to develop some very basic flow charts as well. I just didn't want to undertake that work until the bylaw had been seen by council and it had received some form of reading approval. As you can imagine, that's quite complex work to map, and then to rejig it after is very challenging. So I can answer the best I can. Some things I may have to come back with council because I myself can't necessarily contemplate every application of this bylaw and how it would work because I'm learning this process alongside you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. It's much appreciated. And Councillor Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks to staff for this very big lift to get this to us and for the process. It felt really nice to be included every step of the way, and also really want to just highlight, it's articulated in the staff report, but really that, we've already been in compliance with the provincial legislation on codes of conduct, but really our work to date and what's in front of us tonight really takes it to the next level. And I'm really excited about supporting a policy, a bylaw, that really, I think will, set the precedents potentially regionally, provincially around expectations of council members, especially within the context of some other communities really being challenged by codes of conduct. And so I'm really excited that, that we're being presented something that is quite a high bar of expectations of each other. I guess my question of clarification on page 2 of the staff report, last bullet, and I'm just trying to recall those workshop in-camera hold committee meetings, the $10,000 indemnification if no breach is found. Do we, and this probably is not a question for staff, more probably like for the lawyers, but do we feel like how did we land on that number? And is that a realistic, like to me, that feels potentially low for the covering of what could be some legal fees? But I can't recall why we landed on $10,000.
Thank you very much for the question, Councillor Jolicoeur. The discussion really came through the experience of the individual who was guiding us through this process. So Reese Harding is identified within the report, has lots of experience as the former integrity commissioner for the city of Surrey. So when that question, at least as far as I can recall, when that question was posed to him as what would be a suitable amount, that amount came from Reese, and that was at the time acceptable to council. At the same time, you'll notice within the bylaw, council is able to consider increasing that amount or adjusting that amount. It would just require a council approval process in order to do so. So where the threshold contemplates what it would be typical or what could be anticipated, it doesn't preclude council from making a different decision if the circumstances warrant it. So you don't lose your authority to make that a bit more slidey.
Yeah, thank you. I do have one more question of clarification on the same page under financial implications, the $40,000 we have allocated for this year for the development of the bylaw, but also for the cost of administering the new code. Do we have an estimated amount that component will be? The administration of the code?
I should have gone to law school because I'm going to say it depends. Okay. I can tell you what the experience is when I look at what it costs for us to hire third-party investigators through our HR department when it's warranted there. The cost can range per investigation from $20,000, sometimes up to $60,000 depending on the number of individuals, the severity of the accusations, the timeline under which those things took place. The complexity and the subject matter really contribute to that, as well as how quickly something can really be resolved is another component. So that's essentially the outcomes of it. Is it a quick fix, an apology, a bit of training, or is it something far more substantial that will require follow-up reporting at different timeframes within a sanctioned process? So the 40,000 is really an estimate to see how things go with the application of the bylaw. And then really it's best guess, because councils change, things change. It really depends on the behavior of the individuals around this table and whether or not we are successful, or when there is a code concern, of successfully resolving those through the informal processes, which is what has been identified as the preferred and targeted resolution process in the bylaw. So unfortunately, I can't, that's my best guess for now. Yeah.
All right, thanks for those questions. I don't see any further questions at this point. So all those in favor? And motion carries. All right, on to indemnification authorization bylaw. And Councillor Frisch.
I'll move that council give first, second, and third reading to indemnification authorization bylaw number 3151, 2024.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you very much, council. So it is definitely intentional that these two things come together. I think actually this may be more surprising that we didn't have an indemnification bylaw previously. So prior to the consideration of a bylaw, council's consideration of indemnifying both staff and or members of council was left to a council decision. Bringing forward an indemnification bylaw provides a level of protection for staff and or members of council who, in the course of undertaking their responsibilities as an elected official under the appropriate authority of council, or staff who are taking the direction to undertake the work based on council's direction as well, that the understanding is every day we do our work in the best possible way that we can. We try to make all the right decisions. At the same time, there is always a chance that one of those decisions may cause risk and liability for the organization. An indemnification bylaw essentially provides both staff and council the protection that, as long as we were doing our jobs and doing it in a conscientious and considerate and professional manner, that the city will be there to support us. So we're not taking on a level of personal liability, really. And this has an impact on things around, barriers to members, elected officials maybe considering joining council. It could be quite concerning to some who might want to put their name forward to think that they could be named in a class action lawsuit or civil lawsuit and potentially be found financially liable personally with their homes, their assets, their finances all on the line. The same goes for staff. So although we don't know definitively, it can impact the ability to recruit candidates because there may be concerns that unknown support and leaving it up to the will of an elected body just doesn't give any type of security. So these things are together intentionally, and really it was through the code of conduct process and development where it was revealed that we don't have an indemnification bylaw, and legal's eyes really kind of bugged out a little bit. So it was great to do these things in tandem. And you'll notice that the indemnification bylaw references the code of conduct bylaw. And basically, so where indemnification starts in the code of conduct, it ends in the indemnification bylaw. So the two work really well together and you're not overlapping or competing. And that language is very clear.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that. Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Kate for noticing this gap in our bylaws and addressing it so quickly. And I know this came up during the agenda review, but it might be useful for the remainder of council to hear that although we have been working without a net, all of us until now, this is retrospective, so it does cover previous decisions which fall within the parameters Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Can you confirm that that is the case?
Sorry.
That is correct. So typically with bylaws, we're familiar with it where as soon as it becomes adopted, that is when the bylaw would apply. The language in the bylaw talks about covering past members of council who may be held accountable through civil processes after they've left office or things like that. So yes, this does apply more broadly because things like development bylaws or rezoning, those have very, very long lives and you never know when or if something may arise. So the responsibility or that kind of security does not end with the end of a term. And does not start with this bylaw, but applies to the decision-making processes of council currently, council's future, and political and or staff decisions made previously as well.
Excellent. Councillor Gillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm just curious where the municipal insurance people come in relation to this.
Thank you, Councillor Hillian. So the municipal insurance, they provide the insurance for the organization. So an example where the indemnification bylaw would come through is where both the city and potentially individual members of council and or individual staff are named within the class action or within the civil suit. So the MIA provides insurance to the city. It does not provide insurance to me as an individual or you as an individual, regardless of the position or role that we play at the city. So it's to the corporation, not us as staff or elected officials.
So we have no individual coverage through MIA? I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, and again, I think that's the great thing is like through the process that we've gone through, we're learning all of these things as we enter in the rocks and realize, oh, we should have one of those things. So, kudos to staff for not just realizing this, but bringing forth a bylaw and policies that help us move forward as an organization. So with that, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And actually, there is no opposed. That passes. And we'll move into motions for adoption, the loan authorization bylaw. Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, I'll move that council adopt loan authorization bylaw number 3128/2024, Enderton Dyke Phase 1.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And motion carries. Next, we'll move into loan authorization bylaw 3136/2024. Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, I'll give Councillor Frisch a break. The council adopt loan authorization bylaw 3136/2024, strategic land acquisition 2024.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? And seeing none, all those in favor? And motion carries. And next we have loan authorization bylaw 3137/2024 for the 6th Street Bridge. And Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that council adopt loan authorization bylaw number 3137/2024, 6th Street Bridge.
Excellent. Any questions or comments on that one? And seeing none, all those in favor? And motion carries. Next, we have the official community plan amendment bylaw 3141/2024. And Councillor Joe.
Yeah, just to move the recommendation that council adopt official community plan amendment bylaw number 3141/2024.
Excellent. And any questions or comments? And seeing none, all those in favor? And motion carries. We'll get into council reports. Councillor Cole Hamilton, passing. Councillor Frisch, Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. Just by way of report, I wanted to make a personal statement in the interest of full transparency. I had a change in my circumstances in the past year whereby I paid off the mortgage in my house, which resulted in the bank no longer paying my city taxes. And with being away from the country the last 2 weeks in June, I found myself in the embarrassing position of forgetting to pay my municipal taxes. I want to assure everyone that I paid them today along with the penalty that I incurred. And it's a lesson to everyone out there that, of course, the same rules apply to city council members as everyone else. But I just wanted to state it for the record in case somehow the word got out that Hillian didn't pay his taxes on time. It's true, I didn't. I apologize, and I've sorted it out and paid the price. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your honesty, Councillor Hillian. That is much appreciated. And I know it's a question that I will get asked nearly every year after the deadline. And again, it's something that's outside of our hands, myself as mayor or council, those late fees. Councillor Jolicoeur. Councillor McCullum?
I'll pass, but I just want Councillor Hillian to know that I've also had a penalty on my taxes in the past for not filling out the homeowner grant. So I sympathize. It's a significant penalty for administrative error.
Fantastic. I feel for you. It's unfortunate, but I again appreciate the honesty. Councillor Morin is not in attendance today. Just three things that I really wanted to mention really quickly. One is Canada Day. That was after our last meeting, and just a huge kudos to our staff, the volunteers, the whole community came together for just an amazing day. Secondly, yesterday, we launched the largest fleet of fully electric, zero emission garbage trucks in North America. And I just, again, huge kudos to our staff for taking our thoughts and operationalizing them, and to all of the organizations that had to make that happen, from MTerra, Mack Trucks, the province, everybody coming together to make that happen. And lastly, today I attended the Comox Valley Ground Search and Rescue that received a grant of $30,000 from Fortis BC, and actually helped build the kits for the Ground Search and Rescue volunteers that they'll be using. It was mainly mountaineering equipment, and again, really well received, and just huge kudos to our ground search and rescue folks who are out there in the worst weather generally, looking for people that need to be found. So with that, our open portion is now complete. Resuming, and I believe